this video you will learn how to make this animation in Blender. First we learn the principles behind it, and second we learn how to apply those principles to make it in Blender. Then after we make the main effect, we are going to add some animation to really see the effect from all sides. And after this we are going to set up lighting in the scene and this amazing material with procedural puddles that are gonna give us those amazing reflections. So, infinite mirror effect. The coolest part about it is that it actually works in real life. At the base of this effect are those two-sided mirrors that you might have seen in detective movies, in the scenes where the suspect is getting interrogated. And from spectator's room the glass appears to be transparent, but from the interrogation room the glass appears to be mirror. In the real world, the two-sided mirror is not transparent from one side and reflective from another. I don't believe this material is even possible. The way it works is it lets through part of the light and reflects the rest of it. So if you just have two very bright rooms, the double-sided mirror between them will look like just regular glass. Like in this scene from Brooklyn Nine-Nine, where Terry is in the spectator room and Hitchcock and Scully are in the interrogation room, and we can see both rooms clearly. And in the next shot we are by the other side of the glass, where Hitchcock and Scully are fighting, and we can still clearly see the spectator's room with Terry in it. That's because the light from another room overwhelms our reflection. We still see our reflection right here, and it actually didn't get any dimmer. It just appears dimmer because we get a lot of light from another room. For the two-sided mirror to properly work, one room must be dark and another room must be a lot brighter, like in this scene from The Dark Knight. We can barely see any light in the spectator's room, so from the perspective of the interrogation room, this double-sided mirror appears to be just reflective. And for the infinite mirror effect, we're gonna take two double-sided mirrors, put them right next to each other and put very bright light right in between them. That way those two mirrors are gonna be infinitely reflecting what is in between them, and because it is a lot brighter than the exterior, we are just gonna see that infinite tunnel instead of reflections of the outside world. But because those two mirrors are slightly transparent, it allows some of the light to escape, which allows us to actually see what is going on between those two mirrors. Now in Blender we can actually make this perfect material that is fully transparent from one side and fully reflective from another. But we can also make it more realistic instead, mixing some transparency and some reflectivity. It's fully up to you and depends on your taste, and if you are going for more perfect or more realistic look. First, add cylinder, rotate it and scale it so it's more squished. Then select those two faces, I to inset, 0.05, and with those faces selected, P, selection, to make it into a different object. We'll join everything back together later, but it's more comfortable to work with it when different parts are different objects. This will be our glass, H to hide it for now. And here, Alt, left click to select loops. Make sure you are in edge selection mode, right click, bridge edge loops. Alt H to unhide. Make the ring a little thicker. Add bevel and subdivision surface modifier. Also add subdivision surface modifier to the glass object and make sure that there are no gaps between objects. Now add icosphere. Scale down as you like and position it at the top. Set transform pivot point to 3D cursor. Make sure 3D cursor is in the center of the ring. In edit mode of icosphere, select everything, and in front view, Shift D, R, 11.25, and then Shift R to repeat it until you have the whole circle covered. You can definitely do this part procedurally with radial array, but sometimes I like to just do it manually. Select spheres and give it just bright material for now. And now for the main part. If you do it out of order, you might run into some problems with this effect. Make sure you are in cycles. Check face orientation and make sure that inner faces are red. Blender marks with red the back side of the faces. If you have it like this, both of the reds are facing in the same direction, you just select one, press Alt N, flip. I cannot stress it enough. Make sure that the red sides are facing inwards, otherwise effect will not work. Select glass and give it material. Add glossy BSDF, set roughness to 0. Add transparent BSDF. Mix shader, and here you can either make it more realistic or more perfect. For more realistic look, just adjust the mix factor to around 0.1. But to actually use the advantages of computer graphics and make it perfect, add geometry, and the back-facing output is what we're gonna use here. It marks the back side of the face with white and front side of the face with black. And when we input value 1 for the mixing factor, the material will take the second input, and input value 0, and material will take the first input. So when we connect it and unhide everything, and flip the inputs, transparent to the first input, glossy to the second, and we get infinite mirror. Make sure that glossy is fully white, because the default value is set to 0.8. Now we run into a problem. We can see that the reflections just stop after a few iterations. To fix that, light paths, max bounces, and set transparent, glossy and total values to 32. The more bounces you give here, the more depth you can get. We are going to be looking at it from this angle, so we don't need that many bounces, but just in case I'll keep it at 32. Now for the floor material. We are going to take the base texture from Polyheaven. I picked this concrete wall 7. Download it and put the textures where you can find them. In our scene, select all geometry, search, convert to, mesh. That will apply all of the modifiers and everything so that we just work with geometry. And because of that, we can combine all of the selected geometry into a single mesh by pressing Ctrl J. I find it a little more convenient than parenting it. Move it up and add the plane. That is gonna be our ground. S to scale, 8, Ctrl A, apply scale. Give floor material. If you have Node Wrangler add-on enabled, select Principled BSDF and press Ctrl-Shift-T. Locate the texture folder and select all of the images. Blender will connect everything that is properly named into correct inputs. This is our base material and it looks great, but later we are going to add some puddles to it to add some variety and nice reflections. But first I like to set up camera and lights, so that we can better see and understand what we are doing with the material in the context of this scene. To get an isometric view, I like to rotate my camera like this, make it orthographic and increase or decrease orthographic scale as you like. Then I move the ground on X and Y axis until it covers all of the camera view. Add lights like you see in the video. I like to add multiple backlights, and to duplicate them I use Alt-D. That way when I change the settings on one of those lights, it will change the settings on all of them. Select all of them and rotate them so that they point up a little bit, so that it's not too bright. Color space, AGX, punchy. Here I try to use nodes in the lights, but later in the video there will be a better option. Don't do anything in the shader editor with the lights just yet. Now to finally make those puddles. Cool thing about it is that it's not just noise, it takes into account the displacement texture, making the logical adjustment that there are more likely to be puddles in the deeper parts of the surface. It is fully taken from this video by Blender Guru. He explains it in great detail how and why it works. In this video I will just tell you how to replicate it. We are going to use that displacement texture. Reroute just to have the connection here, map range. Then add noise texture, Ctrl-T to add texture coordinates. Mix color in overlay mode. In the map range, inverse the displacement texture to min 1 to max 0. From the base color texture, multiply color and connect it like you see in the video. Color ramp in constant mode. It will make the border between wet and dry parts fully sharp. These are the settings of the noise texture and offset I used in the final version, so that we have the puddle right under our main object and get those nice reflections. Now our material is darker in wet parts. Also we want to make it less rough in the wet parts. Same as before, add another color mix node in multiply mode. For the roughness texture we are going to use the second color ramp in ease mode. That will make the border between rough and smooth parts less harsh. Now, when the puddle is deep, its surface is completely smooth, because it's just flat water surface. So we are going to flatten normal and displacement maps where the puddles are. For normal map, add mix color node before normal map node, and make the color 0.5 red, 0.5 green, and 1 for blue. That should give us neutral normal map. And do similar stuff with the displacement texture, but there you mix it with the color 0.5 for all red, green and blue to get the neutral gray. You can use nodes to give lights texture. To give the lights the slightly more interesting look, we are going to use texture coordinates, UV, separate XYZ. And there, just copy this map to get the look of a softbox that is less bright on the sides. Now I'm going to add those neon tubes by just selecting loops, duplicating them and extruding outwards. Give the material with very strong emission with a light blue color. While we are here, give the material to the ring itself. I made it metallic, blue and a little rough. I want to show another cool thing in this video. Usually to animate it you would need keyframes at the start and end. But for this one I enjoyed making it with a bit of math, using drivers. First let's make it move up and down. For this, in the location transform of our object in Z, type hash, frame and press enter. And only after this let's adjust the math. Right now it's just gonna go up by 1 meter each frame. We are going to use sine to make it go up and down. Here we have a few problems. It's a bit too fast, it goes up and down too much, and the lowest point is too low. To fix the speed, just divide the frame in the brackets by 32. Then multiply the whole thing by 0.3 to make the amplitude smaller. At the very end, just add 1.4. This will just move the whole thing up by this amount. And now the geometry never goes underground. To add rotation, do the same thing in rotation transform Z slot. Type hash, frame and press enter to make it into a driver, and then divide it by 32. Make the lights a little blue. Now we can lean into unrealistic or stylized adjustments a little more. In real life the reflections are gonna have the same color as the lights, unless the mirror has color, and even then it's just gonna give the reflections that tint. In Blender we have access to information of how many bounces the light ray did, which in this case just basically gives us the information of how deep in the tunnel the reflected light bulb is. To access this information, add light path off node and use ray depth output. I preview it and you can see that it starts dark and gets brighter as we go deeper. That means that for the lights that we see after a bunch of reflections, the ray depth value is bigger. Divided by a big number and connected into hue saturation value node. Give node a color, and to make it animated, add a value node, there type hash frame divided by 48, add it to ray depth like you see in the video. Set strength of the emission to 1, and now we can actually see the colors and how they are animated, changing the hue in a wave animation. To make the lights bigger, select one face of a light and then Shift G, Material. It will select all of the faces with this material. Set transform pivot point to individual origins and scale all of them up. Now for the compositor. Go here and switch it to always, so that we can see the compositor working in the viewport without having to actually render it out. Compositor tab, check use nodes. Make it a little brighter with brightness contrast, then separate color and combine color. Switch both to hue saturation value. Connect them and now we get the exact same output as we had before those two nodes. But now we can modify the brightness of the image by adding color ramp or a float curve, whichever one you prefer. Then add gamma and color balance. Add more saturation, and probably the most important, add fog glow. Now put it to render and you should get something like this at the end. Feel free to tweak and adjust everything as you like, it's all up to you. And tag me on Instagram if you do something cool with it.